did not expect them to launch a war against Iran. So, keeping all this in mind, we come to the point that negotiations was a had that in mind, lots of reasons, Israel forcing them, Epstein files, and also the time when Epstein files were released. There can be theories around that why were they released now? So maybe Israel was playing this card, using this card to force Trump into launching a war against Iran.
You mentioned, excuse me, you mentioned the letter, and it's. I did a search while you were speaking because you said that it was important what the letter said, and I'm going to expand a little bit more about the statements that was made by this Joseph Kent, the director of the National Counterterrorism Center. I think it's very important. And he said, quote, early in this administration, high-ranking Israeli officials and influential members of the American media deployed a misinformation campaign that wholly undermined your America First platform and sowed pro-war sentiments to encourage a war with Iran. And this echo chamber, and that you should strike now, there was a clear path to a swift victory. This was a lie and is the same tactic the Israelis used to draw us into the disastrous Iraq war that cost our nation the lives of thousands of our best men and women. We cannot make this mistake again.
Yeah, I mentioned about the Iraq war.
Exactly.
Actually, this person has suffered a personal loss also. His wife was killed during the Syrian war. So he suffering a personal tragedy. He knows how the loss of lives of the American soldiers for a war which is not going to give them anything and which is not an imminent threat to the American public is really something which should not, in the first place, America should not have started it. I think he is not the only person who has been against this war. There have been other people also. Even the Vice President J.D. Vance was not favoring this war. So this and one of the most important things which needs to be discussed here is that during the previous wars, be it the Iraq war, be it the Afghanistan war, or the other wars which America has fought, a narrative was built around before the attacks were launched. For Afghanistan, they conducted that false flag operation of the World Trade Center, and then they said Al-Qaeda and Taliban are a threat, and then they launched a war. The American public was backing them to a large extent. Then as far as Iraq is concerned, they said, George W. Bush said that Saddam has weapons of mass destruction. The media also played a role. A narrative was built. There were a majority of Americans who were supporting a war against Iraq. But as far as Iran is concerned, there has been no imminent threat. The American public has been against a war with Iran. There were polls done in the United States where the majority of public did not support a war with Iran. There were no set objectives. There was nothing which had to be attained, because there were reports even from the United States which suggested that Iran, the Islamic Republic of Iran, is not developing a nuclear weapon. So the nuclear threat was not there. It was quite clear. It was quite clear that Iran is not developing a nuclear weapon. And if had there been a nuclear threat, then the JCPOA signed during the Obama administration was something that was restricting Iran to enrich its uranium. Who was the person who told the JCPOA? It was Trump. So nuclear enrichment has not been a threat in the first place. It was just used to to propagate a false propaganda, and that is why we are seeing the resignation or people opposing the war on Iran.
It's quite incredible when you see the scenes coming from Al-Ghalab Square, where thousands and thousands of people have congregated on this one of the main squares here in the Islamic Republic, a square that has actually been targeted by the U.S. and Israeli regime, but in the hopes of obviously scaring people away, and it has not done that. But again, when you see these drone footage or angles where it's an overview of how many people are actually have showed up, this is just one of the squares in Iran. There are many squares, not only across the capital Tehran, but also across the Islamic Republic, that have people lined up, not only paying their respects towards the officials that have been assassinated, in this case Dr. Larijani and the head of the Basij military force, but also people who have been martyred overall. There has been a statement coming from an interview that the Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has made. And I'd like to get your idea about this, because it's important, I think, from a regional perspective, where he said that the U.S. has evacuated staff from military bases into hotels, which is why regional countries are being targeted in the form and manner that they are, in the middle of their cities and middle of their towns, because the U.S. is doing that. It's evacuating its personnel from the bases, which then he drew a conclusion that this is therefore U.S.'s fault, not Iran, for the towns and cities to be targeted. I mean, that's an important point, because many are looking at the fact that Iran is just acting wildly, spontaneously and impulsively, and is just going crazy, just targeting anything that it can. But it's not really like that. It's the U.S. in a major way evacuating its personnel into these either hotels or even civilian, perhaps, homes, which is then gives Iran a reason for them to be targeted. Okay. Your reaction to that?
The entity or the side that is 30% of the 30% of those killed, martyred, have been women. There have been tens of children under the age of 15 who have been killed. According to the statistics of the Iranian Red Crescent Society, hospitals have been attacked. Schools have been attacked, residential neighborhoods have been attacked. There have been thousands of neighborhoods and residential neighborhoods in Tehran that have been attacked and leveled to the ground and civilians killed. So if you ask, and not only civilian neighborhoods, also sports stadiums have been attacked. So if you ask who is attacking wildly and attacking everything, every place they can, it's America and Israel. As far as the Islamic Republic of Iran is concerned, Islamic Republic of Iran's retaliatory strikes have been very precise. America is using the population of these regional countries as a human shield, and Iran knows it. Iran's intelligence sources know that.
If you don't mind me jumping in, we have our correspondent in the middle of the street somewhere in a location. Moin, I mean, he joins us right now to tell us what is happening where he is at. Moin, over to you.
Yes, I'm opposite the University of Tehran. Behind me there are the bodies of some 80 naval officers whose bodies have been recovered from an exercise that they were participating, which was hosted by India. This was another act of a violation of humanitarian law by the United States and the Israeli regime, targeting a naval a destroyer that was unarmed and was basically engaged in an exercise. People have gathered in large numbers. Yes, last night they were in the streets, in the main squares around the city and around the country to bid farewell to their heroes, and today they are engaged in a funeral procession to put to rest their fallen heroes. You see, the Dena destroyer was a destroyer that was built domestically by the Iranian experts and youth. It was an advanced destroyer engaged in an exercise, but it was targeted by the US and the Israeli regime during this imposed war by the two mentioned regimes. Now, Iran's system is not individual oriented. It does single night in large.
They are obviously being glorified in the sense that they gave their life through being martyred by serving the country. And then when you have the fact that you have other leaders, what type of sentiments and feelings are you getting from the people when you speak to them, if you had that opportunity yet?
Yes, they take pride in their leaders. The fact that Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei was martyred when he was in his office. I was told that Ali Larijani was also in his office when he was targeted. All the Iranian official generals, Soleimani last night also, another Iranian officer who was another Iranian general who was targeted last night and assassinated along with Dr. Larijani. They were all busy doing their thing. They were in their offices, busy doing their thing. They were in their offices, in their houses. According to the people, demonstrates the fact that they were not scared and they didn't fear the bombardment by the US and the Israeli regime and the targeting and the assassination. You see, unlike the Western leaders who are in bunkers meters under the ground, Iranian officials and Iranian generals and leaders are among people, and they engage in rallies, they engage in funeral processions, and they live life just like an ordinary Iranian would. So that is something that Iranians are proud of, and also, but they are also angry because of the manner they were in which they were assassinated. They were assassinated in an unlawful manner, in a manner that opposes and violates every international law and regulation. That while that brings a lot of anger and grief to people, it also increases the resolve. It gives them a sense of dedication. It adds to their commitment, to dedication to the values of the Islamic Revolution, saying that targeting the individuals and targeting the leaders of the revolution cannot destroy the thought and the Islamic, the school of thought and the ideology behind the Islamic Revolution and the culture of resistance and the Islamic Iranian culture, which does not depend on individuals and persons, shall continue to persist.
As unfortunate as the assassinations are, we're also looking at the fact that you have about 81 members of the Dana crew that were targeted by the U.S. And some of their caskets, I believe, if I'm correct, are being also paraded alongside the Dr. Larijani's casket. Is that true? And can you tell us a little bit more about that and people's feelings regarding that? Moin Amini, do you have my voice? It doesn't look like we have Moin with us. The way that the regional countries are reacting to Iran's retaliation and targeting Jumeirah is twofold at this point. If we were to take a certain piece of news, either with a grain of salt or basically just dismiss it, or if you think that there's a strong possibility for it to happen. On the one hand, we have the fact that they are very angry. This is a war that they didn't start. They gave the warnings to the U.S. and to the Israeli regime, and yet both carried through with this war. A couple days now, pieces of news have surfaced that says that the Arab leaders are very worried about the fact that their country is being targeted by Iran the way that it is, and some are just fed up, and they're saying to the U.S. to finish off Iran. Do you think that that is true, or do you think that they are going to eventually, once this war is over, rethink the relationship that they have with the U.S. security-wise?
Even if for a second we accept that this is true, and these regional countries have been telling the American administration finish away with Iran, that's not going to happen. You know, that thing with what is happening on ground, that is not going to that is not going to America is not going to be successful in doing that. So that objective will not be achieved by the United States of America. So if these regional countries have that in mind, that with the war with America, with the war with the Israeli entity, they would be successful in eliminating Iran, in toppling the Islamic Republic of Iran. That is not going to happen. If they think like that, I think they should realize this now, that Iran is stronger than ever. Iran is stronger than ever. Its people are its strength, and they have been coming out on roads for the last 18 days without showing an iota of tiredness. They have been braving threats of bombing, of missiles, of drones. They have been standing alongside their, the officials of the Islamic Republic, alongside their leader. And so Islamic Republic would be there forever, more stronger than ever. And even the assassination of the leader of the Islamic Revolution, the martyr leader of the Islamic Revolution, Sayyid Ali Khamenei, was not able to deter the Islamic Republic of Iran. So what else can be done that would affect the Islamic Republic of Iran? I think there is nothing that America and Israel can do that would impact the foundations of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Keeping that in mind, the regional countries need to understand that, and the only thing that is going to benefit them is that they would have to reconsider their association with the United States, with Israel, and think about the territory which they had given to the United States to establish its bases, and then the insecurity they face. This is the thing which they should be concerned about, not about eliminating the Islamic Republic, which in no case is going to happen.
There are also indications that we know is pretty much true, but now you have officials of the Israeli regime and also the U.S. That are confessing to it, and this particular headline is very telling, where it says Israel urges Iranians to revolt, but privately they assess that that's not going to happen because of the fact that you have an overwhelming majority of Iranians who are standing up and supporting the government. So this regime change scenario that they had in mind is not working. And let's not forget that this was one of the reasons why perhaps, if there is a reason to justify their illegal aggression, for them to be involved in this combined U.S. effort to... Okay, I'm going to continue my question after Moeen Amini is back with us. Moeen, I don't know if you heard my question. I was asking about also the fallen 82 or 81 plus members of Dana that the U.S. targeted. Their caskets are also being paraded alongside other martyrs such as Dr. Larijani, correct?
Yes, Iranian naval officers, around 130, 140 of them, participated in an exercise hosted by India called Milan 2026. But what happened is that while they were unarmed, engaged in a naval drill, they were targeted by the US and the Israeli regime. I was told that 82, 83 of them are now behind me. Their bodies are behind me in a funeral procession that is these officers of the US and the Israeli regime, and also talking to the officials, and also people, they believe that after this war, once Iran comes victorious, it will find a very new position in the world's emerging order, and the Islamic Republic of Iran will surely emerge as a powerful country in the world and in the world's power geometry. And it will be definitely one part of that power geometry in the world.
Where you're at is not the only place that people have gathered. Do you have any information about other areas and what the numbers have shown up to show solidarity and to give their respects and pay their respects towards some of the fallen sailors, including obviously Dr. Larijani and the head of the Abbasi paramilitary force?
Yes. Since the beginning of the imposed war by the US and the Israeli regime, people have been in the streets basically saying that we will take care of the streets and our armed forces will take care of the battleground. And that is the attitude that we have been witnessing from the Iranian nation. Of course, the enemies of Iran have been planning to engage in terrorist activities. Last night, they wanted, reports indicate that they wanted to engage in a massive terrorist activity in the country, but yet again people's presence in the streets basically neutralized those plots. This is what Iranians believe. They say that everything from the 12-day war in last year all the way to the sedition that took place a few months ago, and also the fresh imposed by the US and the Israeli regime, were all part of a plan to disintegrate Iran. You see, Iran is a nation of different communities, different tribes, and all these communities and tribes are living in harmony, and they all believe that before they are like Turks or Kurds or Arabs or Baluchis, they are Iranians, and that is why they insist on, and that their communal tendencies and tribal attributes, a new war imposed by Iran, and seems
full force again, pledging their allegiance to them.
I think we are facing a complicated statement from Trump and his group. We don't think that it's bravely to assassinate different people and different officials who they are ruling the country with no targeting and with no right aim for their goal and their mission. I think by killing whoever was here in Iran, still the nation will be there, still they are still strong and state, but this Trump who says before that the Iranian nation is great and they are brave and they can change their regime, he faced now that all people here and every night they gathering in different square and different road and different square. So they are all paying attention that they are following this regime and they don't want regime change. Those people who try to clear their mind and money for them, they are very few and they can't change the country or the regime. So we are here now to say to Trump that by saying that this Iranian people who they were great in your eye and now you are saying that they are devil, to do all bad things, where you are giving the media in the world that the right for you to attack more people, innocent people in the country. So that's, I think, not the right path for him. And he faced already that the NATO refused to join him in this attack because they know it's not morally and not legally a right to attack a nation with no goal, with no aim, with no any target, clear target to show to the people. So by killing last night or the day before Mr. Ali Larijani, I think he is putting more fuel on the fire, so the Iranians now gathering more and attaching more to their regime and to their ruler, so to take a revenge from Trump and Netanyahu and their regime. So we are facing different what they are aiming against Iran.
Given the fact that your title reads General Secretary of the Bahrain Khalas Movement, we know that Bahrain has been actually one of the targets of the Islamic Republic because it hosts the U.S. Fifth Fleet in particular, and it is impacted in not just being a target of Islamic Republic U.S. forces, but also the fact that there's another impact that it has on that Persian Gulf island, and that is the fact that you have majority Shias that are there that are somewhat obviously, I would say, inspired or motivated. Do you think that we're looking at an uprising of some sort to take place there in support of the Islamic Republic?
Well, we are calling for our nation in Bahrain for uprising again. We are asking them because there is a lot of the regime is using most of his power to put down the uprising in Bahrain. So he's pushing people in the jail and prison, and he's their people. They are facing a lot of a lot of us become martyrs, and they are under also a lot of morally, and it means most of the martyrs and our people there, they refuse the minority ruler in Bahrain, which is, we don't refuse them because they are Sunni, but we refuse them because they are using against our nation most of the bad behavior. So for that we refuse the Fifth Fleet to be there. We refuse any other army to be in Bahrain, and we are asking for this government to be changed. And I think sooner we will see the uprising of people again, the same what happened in 2011. So we are the same things Trump is asking for Iranian people to uprise against their ruler, where they are in love with their ruler and with their regime. So against things it's happened in Bahrain, because Bahrainian people since Al Khalifa, they came as a ruler by force of British and American people. So they don't want them. They are asking for regime change and to become more democracy and peaceful, to become more democracy and peaceful. They are still attacking people. They are still putting them in the jail. They are still killing them. Our nation now again to uprise and to stand up, because if they lose this opportunity now, so that it won't come back, maybe not even in 100 years.
I guess talks about the way that this war has gone on in terms of the impact, and in my question and in the answer that he gave, Bahrain being one of them. But we're also looking, Humaira, at the fact that the U.S. is losing its allies, in particular how we have seen not only the refusal by many European countries and other countries to participate in the securing some kind of security in the Strait of Hormuz, but also that the U.S. request for NATO assistance has also been rejected. How much of a blow is that to the U.S. president?
How the NATO countries have responded to Trump's offer of forming the force for opening the Strait of Hormuz. And yesterday, if you have seen his post on Truth Social, the way he has written it, it was clear that he was frustrated, and he was saying that we helped you during the Ukraine war, and we expected that you would help us now. On the contrary, you are just backing off. And then Lindsey Graham, the anti-Iran senator in the United States, he also posted on X, and he said that he had never seen Trump so angry. By Lindsey Graham, he says, just spoke to POTUS about our European allies' unwillingness to provide assets to keep the Strait of Hormuz functioning, which benefits Europe far more than America. I have never heard him so angry in my life. I share that anger given what's at stake. the arrogance of our allies to suggest that Iran with a nuclear weapon is a little concern and that military action to stop the Ayatollah from acquiring a nuclear bomb is our problem, not theirs, is beyond offensive. So he continues, beyond this, but if you see the choice of words, if you see the way they are frustrated by what they are receiving now from their allies, is really eye-opening. Even Trump says the United States has been informed by most of our NATO allies that they don't want to get involved with the military operation against the terrorist regime of Iran in the Middle East, despite the fact that almost every country strongly agreed with what we are doing. And then at the in between he says, fortunately we have decimated Iran's military. The navy is gone, the air force is gone, their anti-craft and radar is gone, and perhaps most importantly their leaders at virtually every level are gone, never to threaten us. First of all, he's again repeating this rhetoric of Iranian navy is over, Iranian army is over, which is totally contrary to what we are seeing on the ground. How the occupied territories have been affected. We talked about it, how the American assets have been affected in the region, how their interceptors are totally destroyed. We mentioned this already. But he is directly, saying that we have eliminated their leaders, which is unlawful. The killing of the leader of the Islamic Revolution or the other commanders of the Iranian army, or recently the assassination of Dr. Larijani, or the chief of the Besieged force. These are under international law, under Geneva Convention. These are all illegal, and so a president of a country, of a so-called democratic country, is openly saying something which is not backed by law, which is unlawful, which you cannot do, taking into consideration the laws that govern the world. So this also makes us to realize that these laws are not followed by the people who put them in place, and for them the things like morality, the things like freedom do not exist. They just use it as a rhetoric to meet their goals, to meet the ends which they have set for themselves, but in reality they are the most immoral entities which we can even think of. At the end, Trump says, his words, we need to focus on his words. In fact, speaking as President of the United States of America, by far the most powerful country anywhere in the world, we do not need the help of anyone. And he writes this in capital letters. So that means he is frustrated, and by seeing the way his allies have been dealing with him, that he's forced to say that we don't require them out of utter frustration. NATO is behaving the way it is behaving, or for that matter, and all these countries have America is losing this war, and America is losing this war, and America is losing this war, and Iran is having an upper hand in this war, and to be a part of the losing side, I think the NATO is, these countries, and the NATO is not prepared to be. Had the ground reality been the other way around, had America been having an upper hand, had Iran been on the receiving end of this war, or had Iran appeared as a weaker side, I'm sure these countries would have been a part of the force, would have been backing America by issuing statements, but now seeing what is happening on ground, they have just backed off.
Indeed. Well, Abdul Rauf Al-Shayab, if you're still with us, the U.S. and Israel is not new news that they wanted a quick victory, and they wanted a decisive victory. And they think thought that in the first day when they assassinated Imam Khamenei, and they continue to think that at this point maybe that is now something they can achieve, a quick victory, that is by assassinating Iran's leadership. We have the fact that you have a political structure, and my question to you is the resiliency of this political structure in terms of how it has been built and structured in such a sense that whether you have an assassination take place or for an official to pass away, it's not built around that one particular person. Additionally, there are people who will be the replacement. Can you please tell us a little bit about that, Iran's political structure, and how the strength that it carries?
Well, we have seen now by his aggression practice, it isolated him totally. Means now the NATO is not, so they are not supporting him. They knew that if there is any win beside American or Israel, so they will join that, so they will have the same win together. But because the reading of what's in the ground, it's that he is failing in every side by telling the force, by telling, trying to say that we have defeated Iran. I think he is not going to have a win or a victory, and more than that, if it's a sooner victory. I think they are talking now about 1 or 2 months of a battle with Iran, and that also will not achieve any target that they have put it as an aim from the nuclear program of Iran. And by killing their, I think their officials and their leaders, that doesn't make any change, because you haven't changed the mind of people and the way how they are thinking for their freedom and for democracy, and for them not to be under controlling of any empowered country, especially of America, where the sense of the win of the revolution against Shah, they have like an enemies with their officials, American officials, not with the American nations, of course, and not with the European nations, but mostly the problem with the official and the leaders, and the way, especially that Trump trying to show that he is controlling everywhere, and he faced the reality that no one can, especially NATO, he couldn't control them, and he lost the way and, that he could force them or convince them even to join him for this battle. I think we are going in the right path. Yes, we are paying lots of victims, we are paying lots of price, but the aim that we have to stay and we have to get out the American from the region, and especially and to control the aggression government of Netanyahu and his group. I think that will have the right for us to pay all these victims and to face all this price, because in the end we are going to win, and we are going to reach to the supporting of everybody looking for his freedom and democracy in his country, and peace especially, because by having Israel in this region, I think there is no peace at all. They are brave on assassinating people, they are brave in attacking different country, but they are not brave to put in the ground a program of peace and living together.
News has just come through, Humaira, in terms of one of Iran's industry, and it appears that the infrastructure regarding Pars, southern Pars gas field, has been targeted by the enemy, as this piece of news is indicating. This also indicates how the U.S. and the Israeli regime are showing the true face, that they want to really have Iran be targeted in its infrastructure, not only to hurt its economy, but in turn, obviously, the people, because it is the people that they claim that they want to watch out for, but yet couldn't be anything further than the truth.
Yeah, they have also. I was just seeing the news, and they have also attacked the Larijani court, where 8 people have died, have been martyred. So attacking the infrastructure of Iran, the civilian infrastructure of Iran, is going to have repercussions for them. And as you mentioned rightly, that they are showing their true colors. These were the people who were using the narrative of, which we already said, morality, freedom, right, health and all that, but that is the veil is just getting removed, and the whole world, and especially Iranians, if they had maybe a handful of Iranians, if they had a doubt about what intentions the United States, or for that matter the Israeli regime, has for Iran, the veil has been removed, the curtains have been removed, and now they can see that these two entities are hitting the civilian infrastructure of Iran, which is directly going to affect the civilian population of Iran. Attacking oil field is going to release hazardous gases. It's an environmental catastrophe to an extent, which we saw when they attacked Tehran, how polluted the air was the next day, and then what type of rain we had. So directly, first of all, it is against law, it is against the Geneva Conventions, it is against the laws which were set by the United Nations after World War II, but it is also against humanitarian, humanitarian laws, or humanity, taking into consideration that America, just a couple of months ago, when riots were taking place in the country, Trump was saying that help is on its way, and we are with the people of Iran. So now the way they have been behaving for the last 18 days has been showing that America or Israel doesn't want peace, or doesn't think about the prosperity of anyone in the world. They just want to meet their evil military goals, which support their military industrial complex, which gives them huge amounts of money, which is able to manufacture wars, which is able to support their intelligence agencies, their media, and all that. So it is just the thing is that they just work for the benefit of a couple of families, putting at stake the lives of millions of people around the world. They have totally destroyed so many countries in the region, and now they are working on the same path for Iran as well. The way they are attacking the civilian infrastructure, they are killing civilians, they are attacking hospitals. They are the first day, we are mentioning it time and again because it is something which cannot be forgotten, for hundreds of years, that they attacked an elementary school in Iran, and they killed 170 young girls, and since then they have been attacking civilians. They have been attacking emergency centers. They have also been attacking Iranian Red Crescent Society emergency centers. They have been killing emergency personnel. They have been attacking ambulances. So the world has to see that these are terrorist entities, and whatever they say, maybe they use a rhetoric of masking what they really are. Now the people of the world have to rise against it and say that and see it as it is appearing now.
Okay, thank you very much. We do appreciate it. Let me turn our attention to our guest, Abdul Rauf Al-Shayab. Abdul Rauf, the way that the U.S. President is looking at this war is something that he's not getting the type of support that he wants across the world from some of his allies, and that's very telling in itself. But also the point that is being criticized and leveled against him is that he really doesn't have a clear-cut exit strategy. Even the whole premise of the U.S. attacking Iran has been questioned, not only in terms of its legality, but also in terms of people around him. What goals does the U.S. President have at this point in terms of pursuing this war, given the fact that the whole regime change plans have somewhat fallen through, and that is not something that they are pursuing, at least in the immediate short term?
I think he become now, and he agreed that the change of regime, it's something impossible, because this regime has been supported by the nation itself. And the other things also, defeating Iran, it's impossible. That's not, I said that. Even European people and NATO says that it's impossible to defeat Iran by going for this war. So he's losing, and the popular people in America also they are refusing, and the taxpayer also in America, they refuse because he's using their money for a war where they haven't agreed with, and not even the Congress or the Pentagon give him full authority for this war, because there is no aim and they don't know how to end of this war. Now I think he's planning to go for the bomb like Hiroshima. I think he's planning for that because he knew that by normal means weapons and muscles he can't defeat Iran. So he might, because he's not in his mind, he might go for a bomb like Hiroshima to defeat and to put Iran on knee. But still, we think, even if he go for this choice, still he couldn't defeat Iran, because it's the aim for him on that case to kill every single person in Iran, which is impossible, and nobody will agree with him, even in his group in America. So I think he is losing, and he don't have a clear aim. He is putting himself. He's great on changing and escalating and replacing people from place to place. He says, I'm going to move Gaza people to Egypt and to Jordan. So why don't he use the same things to move Israeli people to his country? They have 50, means they have 50 places there and united. So let them to be 51 now and take Israeli people there. We don't need some terrorist people among us here in this region. We need to live in peace, and that will not happen if Israel is still there and supporting by American people. I think the aim now to take off the power of American in the region, and also to take out the Israeli regime among us.
Okay, Presidency Naipur joins us in the studio now. Thank you for coming to us on regarding the massive crowds. It is quite telling how they have been diligent in coming out every night. Maybe it's not the same crowd, but still in massive numbers. We're looking at the shots here, and the particular shot on the left is quite telling because you can't see the end of where this crowd ends. I'm not too sure if this is still Engelab Square or not. Maybe you can tell us a little bit of background on this, if you can. And if not, just what this all means to these people, these Iranians who have been steadfast in coming out to the streets day in, day out.
Now it's in
I'm sorry, this is for Naipur, so I'll come to you with that same question, though. Stay with us. Go ahead, Nahid.
First of all, I want to say hello to our audience. Yeah, I was there actually, and the crowd was massive. It's very important to highlight the very point about the presence of people. I understand that from the day one of the war, everyone on social media, they're talking about the presence of Iranian in the public sphere and taking to the streets to raise their support for the Islamic Republic, and also to make sure that the state understands their very strong message about not having any sort of ceasefire and continue taking revenge from the enemy, both Zionist regime and United States, and whoever is providing resources for them, including airspace. Very important because it's a funeral not only for Dr. Larijani, it's about our Navy that brutally was attacked by the United States while they were not in any sort of military operation. That was definitely only for showing solidarity between countries. That's why, on the invitation of Indians, this navy went to India. And I'm not sure if other guests mentioned this about this navy. It's the same one. It's a very young one. Dorna is very young. It's only 4 years. And they are the symbol of Iran's navy. Why? Because they were successful to have a world tour. I think it was a year ago, in 80 days. And it was astonishing, a very great achievement for our Navy. And I think this is one of the reasons, not the only reason, but one of the reasons that United States decided to attack. And it was a very coward act of their military, because they knew they're not armed, and they're not in the position of defending themselves, even though they did have some logistics, but they were not backed by other Iranian navies. So when Donald Trump is bluffing about elimination of Iranian navy and how everything is destroyed, I think the main one he's referring to is the one that wasn't even in the military operation, and it was just, as I said, going for a drill and being in other, by the invitation of Indians, being in the waters of India.
Abdul Rauf Al-Shayeb, same question to you in terms of how we're seeing these people come out day in and day out. That is one of the, even though it's very visible in terms of the sheer volume or numbers, but it is one of the ingredients of the success that the Islamic Republic has had against the U.S. and the Israeli regime, and defeating at least one of their goals, which was to have the general public not supporting the government any longer. Abdul Rauf, are you still with us? No, it doesn't look like he's still with us. Okay, we have the U.S. counterterrorism intelligence officer that resigned. It was a big deal in terms of the way that this news was broadcast everywhere. And I took the time to look through the letter, the resignation letter. And if I can bring that, I'm sure I can't bring it up just quickly enough. But what was telling about that letter was the fact that it said that it's the Israeli regime that has propelled the U.S. and given the motivation for the U.S. to come into this war. And this is one of the wars that Iran did not pose a threat. And he made a comparison to the Iraq War. How significant is his resignation in terms of the title that he had, which shows somewhat of a growing, I guess, not dissent, but growing opposition towards the war that the U.S. president is waging?
He is one of the very closest people, and I would say he was a warmonger. He was advocating for war beforehand, and as you said, that's very telling, because all these people who were chanting and encouraging the U.S. president to actually go and initiate a war with Iran, they lacked knowledge and understanding of Iran. They did not understand how their initiative of war is going to give a very, I would say, easy platform to the Iranians to make sure what they cannot achieve in the peacetime, they can get it during the wartime, which is, I'm talking about the Strait of Hormuz. When they say, oh, I'm resigning, I'm not in anymore, because they can see the result and the consequences of their own decision, now it's firing back. So they don't want to be there to take responsibilities. They want to make sure before it gets late, they're not there to be questioned. They should be the ones that they are saying, oh, before things get worse, I was the one who actually resigned. And that is a very important highlight of what is happening in the United States, what is happening in the enemy's front line, I would say. That many advisors of Donald Trump, the very right-wing advocates of war, they are the ones now that they're saying, okay, we have to walk back. We have to walk back from our stance. This is not a war that we are going to win because we are seeing the assassination of the leader of Iran wasn't good enough for the United States to win the war as they promised in 4 days.
Moin Amini is our correspondent joining us now. Moin Amini, welcome back. Tell us what you're seeing. Moin Amini, are you with us?
People have gathered today in large numbers to engage in a funeral procession for some 80 martyrs of the Iranian Dena destroyer. A destroyer domestically built by Iranian scientists and engineers. Engaged was targeted and defend themselves, and this is another violation of humanitarian law by the United States and the Israeli regime. Of course, in the beginning of their new imposed war on Iran, they targeted a school, killing some 170 school kids, little girls and boys whose parents were waiting for them. And the massacre of the school children in Minab was really great sorrow for the Iranian nation. Following the attack on the school, they targeted Iran's leader of Iran's revolution, Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei, which was the reaction I could see from people was nothing I had seen before. The amount of the degree of anger was what you see enough. Is even more. You know, Iran is a country of different tribes and communities, and it seems like his martyrdom has brought these people even closer. And they say that targeting their beloved heroes and leaders is not going to destroy their school of thought and the values they stand for, and that is not something that can be bombarded, and it will even get stronger as a result of such atrocities. I mean, the more heinous the US and the Israeli regime's attacks on Iran gets, the stronger people's attacks on Iran gets, the stronger people's cohesion and integration also the people's cohesion and integration also tends to be stronger. And one thing that has really made people happy was the election of Ayatollah Sayyid Mojtaba Khamenei, son of Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei, as the new leader of Iran's Islamic revolution. A person popular among people, a person loved by the people, which is why his election made people quite happy. It injected a new wave of energy.
The very right-wing advocates of war, they are the ones now that they're saying, okay, we have to walk back. We have to walk back from our stance. This is not a war that we are going to win because we are seeing the assassination of the leader of Iran wasn't good enough for the United States to win the war as they promised in 4 days.
Moin Amini is our correspondent joining us now. Moin Amini, welcome back. Tell us what you're seeing. Moin Amini, are you with us?
People have gathered today in large numbers to engage in a funeral procession for some 80 martyrs of the Iranian Dena destroyer. A destroyer domestically built by Iranian scientists and engineers, a destroyer belonging to the naval forces of the Islamic Revolution of Iran. Now you see the destroyer was with some 120 naval officers was present in the Indian Ocean, engaged in an exercise, naval exercise hosted by India when it was attacked. God is the greatest and Khamenei is the leader. So it seems like all the plots, the so-called regime change, the imposed war back in June last year, and also the fresh wave of war against Iran have proven to be futile. And this nation, I mean, to me at least, seems to be more cohesive, more integrated, and stronger than ever before. So yeah, that's all for now. I hope I could be giving you more updates. I hope I could be giving you more updates in the coming hours.
Well, we appreciate that. It's a pleasure to see the way Iranians have turned out en masse. Nahid, I'm sure you'll agree with that. They are treading also. They're also treading water that they have not treaded before, because you have so many assassinations that have taken place. Obviously, Imam Khamenei is one of the ones that hurt the most and hit them the most. But the outlook that Iranians have in terms of martyrdom, maybe it's something that we may want to expand on, because these are just being covered in the Western media as such that the Islamic Republic is being defeated on a wide variety of fronts. Where in this particular case in point, yes, it is hard to lose either an ordinary person or an official, but overall it's not enough to bring down the Islamic Republic.
I would say the martyrdom of Dr. Ali Larijani will definitely strengthen the core of the Islamic Republic, which is the people. And why I'm saying this, why I'm claiming this, is because it's not even a month that we lost our great leader. And what happened after the martyrdom of Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei was actually revolutionizing the people's values, reminding them the values of 1979 Islamic Revolution, reminding them their subjectivity and how they're redefine, I would say, their role in the Islamic Republic. Where is the position of people in this framework? I think with the martyrdom and with the blood of Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei, people regained what they had during the 1979 Islamic Revolution. And what was it? Their level of energy, their level of subjectivity, and also their confidence in their subjectivity, they just grow. And that's why people are still in the streets, because they could see the impact of their desire, I would say, and the way they command the state to follow the orders of the Islamic Republic, where people are saying the last message. And this very message right now is that we need to continue until the end. And what is the end? Based on what I am hearing from these people in the street and all the analysis around this, is that we just want the Zionist regime to be dismantled, and the United States, the soldiers and the bases be gone from the region. And also now another matter also has been added, which is the Strait of Hormuz, and how it's playing a very important, I would say, new role in the shaping of global order, which is very significant, not because we are Iranians and we think it's important, because everyone is showing that the importance of a Strait of Hormuz is the reason Donald Trump is losing. And And for Dr. Larijani martyrdom, that's the same case. I believe after Dr. Ali Larijani, another person will take this position, surely with sorrow, because everyone is really sad about this martyrdom, which is very important and critical here. We are replacing our officials with the officials during the wartime. This is very important. It's not an ordinary time for Iran. It's the wartime. And would you expect someone less revolutionary, having less, how to say, understanding of the danger of US imperialism, or actually the opposite way around? Someone who is, because Dr. Larijani was someone who was seen in the political sphere of Iran, someone who was trying to make sure a balance between different political forces in this country. He wasn't seen someone as very radical. He wasn't seen the most revolutionary, anti-everything. He wasn't. If we review his political life, he was always trying to mediate between forces, and that's why I think the very important role of position of Security Council was given to him, because he tried to make sure all the powers and forces are in balance. Now we are in war, and surely everyone now is talking about the next person will be even more revolutionary, the one that who wouldn't have zero tolerance for any sort of ceasefire or anything that Zionist regime or the United States will be happy when they hear the news. The same with Ayatollah Sayyid Mojtaba Hosseini Khamenei. The reaction from Donald Trump was like, oh, I'm not happy with this decision. You will not be happy with the decision of the person who is going to take the position of the Secretary of National Security.
A report came out that is quite telling, and it's for the first week of war, even though we're in the third week of war, that said that the U.S. has suffered over 3,200 casualties, where it goes on to say that based on the assessment that was made in this report, indicates a critical depletion of the air defense stockpiles. We've known that. Over 3,000 wounded, 3,000 American military personnel were wounded in the first week, and 200 U.S. military personnel were killed. And the material losses that it goes on to say, things like 150 missile launch platforms or 23 Patriot air defense missile systems. The U.S. Casualties in terms of not only civilian lives, or lives I should say, but also in terms of material and property damages is quite telling, but yet we're looking at how the U.S. President is after censoring the U.S. media, something that the Israeli regime is doing forcefully. This is quite significant in the fact that not all the information.
They can keep the news. It's gonna be in their access. It's gonna be in their access tweet. You can't write a tweet and then declare victory in a war. People are going to see the reality. The Zionist regime, they cut electricity in Gaza to make sure that no footages, no news will come out from Gaza, so that people are gonna see the genocide there. But at the end of the day, could they do that? No. At the end, everyone knew what happened to the hospital. When first they said, oh, it was Hamas, and then they couldn't deny the very fact. That's the same thing. We have witnessed genocide in Gaza, and we are after and during the genocide right now. So it's not something new to us. As an Iranians, we do know how their, how to say, their, the framework of their approach to and behavior when they are panicking. But for the global audience, maybe it's something wasn't that revealed, and the genocide in Gaza was the reason to expose all these features of these people. He is panicking, Donald Trump is panicking. He ordered media to not talk about war and criticize the war. Hello, freedom of speech, thank you so much. America as the land of the freedom. But again, as I said, this is not something new. We did see it while students, university students, try to campaign against the genocide in Gaza and try to raise their voice that you have to cut the ties with the genocidal regime of Israel as a university. And we saw what happened after the crackdown on the students. So the situation about censorship that you said forcefully has been imposed on the entity of Israel for years. I think the very foundation of the Israeli regime is based on censorship. They cannot go ahead if the truth has always found a way to show itself to people that from the day one of this entity, everything was based on lies. And when you declare the establishment of the Zionist regime based on lies, of course, censorship has to be fundamental in this framework.
Indeed. Leila Hatoum joins us now to give us her take. She's across Iran. The images on the screen speak for themselves if you haven't seen them. Now's your chance to take a look at it. People, again, out in solidarity and showing and paying their respect towards their fallen leaders, even though many are embracing that. I'm looking forward to how officials here in Iran, in this particular scenario that is pretty much unknown territory, to recoup, and then move forward. The leaders, obviously, of Iranian officials overall, have a very large task ahead of them, not only in terms of the replacements, but also in terms of making sure that the country moves forward. Militarily speaking, we're seeing that happen. What are your impressions, first of all, in terms of the two assassinations that have taken place?
Well, first, allow me to give condolences to the Iranian people and the leadership, as well as to yourself and your colleagues. When it comes to the basically the assassination of great leaders, there's nothing that we can do but basically stand silent in front of what's happening, and the fact that the world is not doing anything when world leaders are being targeted that way. Imagine if the turn basically reaches the British or the Americans or anybody else, but the Israelis decide that they don't want over there. Now, having said that, you need to understand that Iran is not a small nation, and Iran is not what you call a nascent nation, as we call it. They have plans, and when they actually go to war, they are well prepared, and that means they are well prepared for all scenarios, including losing leaders. So I do believe that they do have what you call first, second, and third tier leadership that are willing or ready to replace anybody who basically gets assassinated or gets martyred during the process. In that sense, we saw how fast and how quick the Iranian Shura Council managed to actually replace Sayyid Ali Khamenei, may his soul rest in peace, and how basically they managed to actually also replace several of the military leaders, be it in the IRGC or the army itself. So looking at the whole situation, I do believe that the Iranians, including Larijani, Mr. Larijani himself, may his soul rest in peace, knew what was coming. They were ready for it. It was a price that they were willing to pay to keep their country free and sovereign, and not basically subject to international hegemony and dictatorship by the Americans or the Israelis. So at the end of the day, the people's gathering on the streets as well, when I'm looking at it, you have to understand one thing. It shows how much the people love their leadership. And people willing to go to the streets despite the fact that they are threatened by the Israelis. They're literally braving the conditions that are being imposed on Iran at the moment to bid farewell to their fallen leader. At the end of the day, that says a lot.
That indeed does say a lot, and the
So can I just interrupt you by having this news? Hopefully this is not, I mean it is confirmed that they just attacked the petrochemical center of Pars Junubi right
South Pars
now.
gas field.
So, wow. Iran has already warned them, if you attack our oil and anything related to the refinery, we're gonna retaliate. And this is now what is happening right now. This is the decision of the enemy. I just wanted to...
Yeah, let's ask Layla Hatum about that. You know, they are going after Iran's oil infrastructure. Layla Hatum, what's your reaction to that? Iran has obviously warned that they're going to retaliate in kind.
Well, the thing is, the Israelis know that the Iranians are not going to play around. They might have something that they had planned beforehand, but the Israelis are like a rat. When you corner it, it's going to eliminate itself and everybody around it at any point. And they are becoming suicidal on a daily basis. We see them when they are being cornered in South Lebanon. They cannot actually achieve what they needed to achieve. They take it against civilians and against our infrastructure. Same thing in Iran. They couldn't achieve what they wanted to achieve in Iran, be it toppling the leadership, be it moving the people against the leadership, or basically having people, creating the fear-mongering campaign to have people back off and the Iranians basically missile power stop. They failed in doing all of that. So what do? They do what they know best, destroying infrastructure. And in this sense, I do hope that the Iranians will live up to their promise on this one, and they will target the right places in the Israeli entity and the American interests in the region, so that they would know that every action has a reaction. Because in the past, Iran and the Axis of Resistance were acting ethically. They stuck to what you call the ethics of war. The Israelis and the Americans kept breaching international law. Now international law is void and useless. Nobody can speak about international law anymore. And in that sense, we shouldn't be sticking to it. And I want to remind the Axis of Resistance of one thing. In the Quran, God said something very critical. He said, وَقَاتِلُوهُمْ مِثْلَ مَا وَاعْتَدُوا عَلَيْهِمْ بِمِثْلِ مَا اعْتَدُوا عَلَيْكُمْ. So aggress them in the same manner that they have aggressed you. So Iran has not only the military strategy, but also the divine strategy in terms of how to retaliate to an enemy that is attacking civilian infrastructure and attacking civilians as well.
So what do you think about the fact that Iran is going to, the nature of the attack or retaliation, I must say, is going to happen in terms of the fierceness of it? We're looking at the 62nd wave to have just been executed, I guess a couple of hours ago, which comes pretty fast after the 61st wave. Are we going to see the Israeli regime's different, maybe infrastructure like ports and or energy infrastructure be targeted?
Well, we do know that the Israeli entity is siphoning Lebanese and Palestinian gas from basically the sea. So offshore fields can be targeted. We're talking about Karish, Leviathan, Tamar at any point, or even what you call the refineries, their ports, as you said, but also their airports and other infrastructure deep inside the Israeli occupation entity. Rosh Dan is all now basically what you call a legal target. And I can't wait to see what the Iranians are going to target next, because I do believe that they carry out their promise truthfully till the end. We saw it happen in the past three waves, the truthful promise for 1, 2, and 3. The fourth one, they haven't fallen short on carrying out their promise and their threat. And at the same time, we're going to see them basically do the same thing now.
What about the fact that we're looking at a major piece of news that came from the resignation of this counterterrorism officer, the highest ranking one, who has said that this war that's being waged against the Islamic Republic is illegal, and that it was the Israeli regime that actually pushed the U.S. to come into and assist them with it. We know it's a joint operation, however, and I think that's somewhat misleading, because I'm sure the U.S. President himself particularly was very eager for this war to be waged. It was said that even when he came into office, he had plans to do this with the Israeli regime.
He also had a feeling Have you ever seen somebody wage a war based on a feeling? But this is something that the Americans are well known for. They are cowboys. They shoot first and they ask questions later. This is not a way to carry international diplomacy or coexist with other nations. I mean, this guy is literally what you call a highway robber. Tens of millions of Shia across the world. And at the same time, he's been killing the leadership that he is supposed to be negotiating with, right? So the way I look at the whole situation, the Americans and the Israelis have planned this, but they didn't know the scale of the reaction. They always banked on Iran on fighting ethically and being late in response because they give way for diplomacy. I do believe after last year's June and this year's basically February backstabbing from the Americans when it comes to negotiations, despite the fact that the negotiations had advanced according to the mediator, the Omani mediator. So I do believe that the Iranians have learned the lesson very well, and there's nothing that's going to stop this war except for the Iranians actually stopping it. The Americans and the Israelis have literally stuck in a swamp over here, and they're trying to use any means of force, and that shows the scale of the force that they're using and against who. It shows that they are stuck and they don't know what to do. So they haven't planned it very well. They only planned on hitting but not receiving the hits, and now they're stuck getting hit, and they are getting a taste of what they have basically dealt to other people in this region, including the Iranians.
The Washington Post entry is quite telling. Every other piece of news in this regard or similar to it is reporting it that Israel is urging Iranians to revolt, but privately they're assessing that this is just not going to bear fruit the way that they thought in terms of the grand scheme of things under the regime change umbrella. You have the U.S. also that is said, based on many, at least correspondents who have attended the White House briefings, that the regime change scenario is no longer in the picture. When you take a look at how that has basically been dealt a heavy blow, what calculations or a change of calculations do you think the U.S. and the Israeli regime have in that regard?
I do believe there's karma, and karma basically came back to bite the Americans really hard. If you've seen the Iranian leadership, they are willing to get martyred, but they never resigned, which means they believe in their cause. When you look at the Americans, because I'm tying it to the previous question as well, their own administration is seeing people falling out or basically being very critical of their own administration. People are resigning, they're leaving, they're criticizing their president. And many of the media outlets as well that are supposed to be in the hands of the Zionists and the Americans, the American administration, are now being critical of this war, and they actually are saying it's futile, and it's basically it's creating a backlash also among the society itself. So when I look at the whole situation when it comes to this matter, I do believe that the American population is feeling or bearing the brunt of this war. Hike in the prices, be it petrol prices, among other things. The American administration is trying to convince their own people that this is a short-term pain for a long-term gain. No, it's going to be a long-term pain as well. The hike in prices is not only going to be for oil, but it's also going to be for food items, as well as what you call other daily necessities as well. And this is going to push the society itself to turn against the president. And the moment that the coffins of the Americans who have fallen so far fighting for the Israelis in this region, which is really funny. I mean, they're fighting for a foreign entity rather than fighting for their own country. The moment these coffins start coming back home, you start seeing a wave among the society in the U.S., a snowballing effect, calling for the president and the administration to bring our boys home, just like we saw in 1983, when over 140 to 170 Americans, 240 Americans basically were returned back in coffins. And the American president eventually had to fall back from Beirut and basically send his people packing back to the U.S. So I do bank on the time element that's going to work in Iranians' favor. The Iranians are natives to this land. They're not going to go anywhere. But the Americans and the Israelis are not natives, and they always have the option to leave. And the moment that you hurt them in terms of their human capital and their finances, that's when they're going to back off. And I think they are bearing the brunt now. Their society is bearing the brunt now, and the Israelis are also feeling it, but they're good at what you call media blackout. So you can't get information because their military has imposed what you call pre-media censorship on everything that comes out. They have to pass through the military media first.
The two reports are now circulating. One is the fact that you have Persian Gulf Arab countries saying that we didn't start this war, Leila Hatoum, It was the U.S. and the Israeli regime that did that, and it is not fair for them to basically receive the type of retaliation that Iran is leveling against them. On the other hand, just a couple of days back, you have reports that indicate that the Persian Gulf countries are now so sick and tired of this war, and they are so angered by the Iranian retaliation that they want the U.S. and the Israeli regime to finish off, in quotes, the Islamic Republic. Can you please explain to us either you agree with one or the other? And if the Persian Gulf countries, are we talking about all of them, or are we talking about just a couple, or are they united in terms of wanting this war to end? How do you see it?
Well, look, I've lived in the GCC, especially in Dubai, for 15 years in a row, until recently. So I do understand the mindset over there and the dynamics. When they say that they didn't have a hand in this war, it means that they don't want to be dragged into this war. They don't want to fight, and they know that basically any disturbance to stability in this region, it will hurt their economies, their finances, and at the same time, it will drive away what you call foreign direct investments and direct investments, because capital is coward, as we call it. There will be flight of capital, and nobody is going to send their money to invest over there on the longer term. Even when this war is over, they will try their best, but the trust will not be there. They have to rebuild it all over again. So at the end of the day, I do believe that they didn't have a hand at a certain point in terms of launching a war against Iran. But at the same time, they do have what you call American military bases, and some of them also have Israeli military present on their territories because they have normalized ties with the Israelis. So at any point, if the Americans or the Israelis use these countries as a launching pad against Iran, they should expect that in times of war, that these bases will be hit, and those American and Israeli assets will be hit. Now, I do understand and I do agree that civilians and civilian infrastructure shouldn't be a target so long that the enemy is not using it. But if they allow the Americans and the Israelis to use these facilities, like we saw with the hotel in Bahrain that was filled with US personnel, and it was targeted by one of the drones, the drone attack by Iran, that tells you a lot that at any point the Iranians are not using excessive force against any civilian infrastructure. Whereas we saw also a direct attack against one of the oil fields in Saudi Arabia, and we saw the foreign affairs minister of Iran sending a direct message to his counterpart in Saudi Arabia saying we did not have a hand in that. So somebody else was trying to create false flags to drag the GCC nations into this war so they can fight the fight instead of the Americans and the Israelis, who would sit down and eat popcorn and watch what's happening and laugh at the Arabs and the Iranians fighting each other, Muslims versus Muslims. And at the same time, they wanted to actually have the GCC nations foot the bill for this war, because if the GCC nations get dragged into it and they start fighting against the Iranians, they will be the ones funding it. So at the end of the day, when the GCC nations understood that there were false flags, especially with Saudi Arabia and Qatar, whom basically we recently saw what you call a report in one of the big media outlets over here, that the Saudis and the Qataris discovered Mossad cells that were trying to create false flags to destroy civilian places, and then later on blame it on the Iranians so they can have the Saudis and the Qataris fight the Iranians. We also saw the Iranian army and the IRGC issuing a statement that the Israelis have managed to copy Shahed drone that's basically manufactured by the Iranians and use it to target other countries in the region, and trying to claim that the Iranians were the source of that attack against their civilian areas. So at the end of the day, the GCC nations are now aware of the situation. They don't want to be dragged into this war. This caused a massive dilemma for the Americans, and Donald Trump eventually, NATO powers were not there to help him. GCC nations refused to be part of this war, so no financiers and no extra boots on the ground to help him fight this war. He's stuck, and that's why basically we heard him say 2 days ago and yesterday that he doesn't need anybody else. They can actually do it on their own, but they cannot do it on their own. And if he thinks that he can actually change the situation that dramatically, I think he's delusional. But at the end of the day, I also am apprehensive. When it comes to military strategy, you understand that there are lots of races across Iran, and there are some separatists that the Americans have been feeding throughout. We saw basically Iran back in January 2024 attack those separatists on the Pakistani side, and vice versa, the Pakistanis attacking the separatists on the Iranian side. So there are separatists on the ground. There are Mossad agents on the ground, and they can use that to create what you call disruptions inside Iran. I do hope that the Iranian people are well aware of that, and that they fight alongside their own government against this kind of disruption, because if they lose their country, it will be like another Afghanistan and another Iraq, and they can never basically stand tall and sovereign if they allow foreign nations to actually tamper with them and play with them like that.
Do you have any thoughts to add to that particular line of thinking that our guest there talked about? When it comes to separatists, when it comes to the Mossad agents that are going to try to somewhat balkanize, these regions that they want to basically cut off, which is something that has been on their agenda for quite some time.
Well, IRGC has been very straightforward in this issue from the day one of the war. Not only verbally, but actually they acted a couple of times, and their operations were very strong enough for the enemy to understand that this is not the battlefield that they can join. A couple of operations, and then later Iran said, you are not going to even think about having any sort of operation against the borders, around the borders of Iran. And during the 8th and 9th of January terrorist attacks in this country, we also had the same situation when, look, Iran has 15 neighbors, and dealing with all these, I would say, the diversity of this country is something that is the reason of the beauty of this country. But at the same time, the imperialist power has used this very feature of Iranian as a nation to be the reason for the separatist and the imperialist interest to be met in the region. One day it's southeast of Iran, Sistan Baluchistan, another day it's southwest in Khuzestan, or in the west, Kurdistan, or like all the borders of Iran, and I have to say about Khorasan as well. So all the borders of Iran are the location for the enemy to actually invest in, to make sure whenever it's a good time for them to attack the notion of the nation of Iran, because Iran is just too powerful. Iran is just too powerful for the enemy to handle. So, of course, I think that right now what is happening between the separatist group and Iran is quite simple. They heard the message from Iran, and I think they are acting accordingly, that if you just take the first step, the second step and the retaliation of the Iranian military and also IRGC is going to be crushing in a way that it's not going to be even a region in Iraq. That was the message from Iran to the governors of the region, as we call it, in Erbil in Iraq, that do not allow these separatists to take any step against the sovereignty of Iran.
Laila Hatoum, if we want to talk about another factor that might be entering this war, the announcement was made as a matter of when, not if, and that is the front that's going to be opened up by Yemen and the Ansarullah movement. Give us your thoughts on that in terms of obviously their first go-to task, which would be the closure of perhaps the Red Sea area or the Bab el-Mandab Strait.
Well, look, the Americans had announced a day ago that they are pulling out their USS Gerald Ford aircraft carrier for what you call not only inspection, but fixing it up, because it has sustained what you call fire that erupted on its docks a week before that. What does that tell you? That the USS Gerald Ford had been targeted before. We have heard that there were some operations that were carried out by the Yemenis in the Red Sea over the past period, of course, because they had promised that so long that there is Gaza, that the war on Gaza continues, and because the Israelis continue to attack Gaza, that the Yemeni armed forces are not going to back off from fighting. But I do believe that if the Yemeni front opens, it's not only going to be devastating to a large number of states who rely on that, what you call vital maritime artery in terms of maritime trade for Europeans, for Mediterraneans, for the Middle Easterners, and for the Asians as well. But also it's going to be what you call devastating for the economies of these countries, as well as what you call for their militaries, because they all have, at one point or another, NATO powers, they do have representative ships, destroyers, in the region, be it in the Arabian Sea, the Gulf of Aden, and sometimes they pass through the Red Sea, so they will all be sitting targets. And I do believe that the Yemenis already know where the assets of every one of those nations are, the nations that support the Israeli entity and the Americans in this war, even though if they claim that they are not supporting them, they are supporting them. But I do believe that the Yemenis will be more vicious in terms of targeting and more accurate because they have nothing to lose. And they don't care at the end of the day of sustaining what you call good relations with people around them. They have been attacked by their neighbors for the longest time. So this time they are going in it for the long run until the end to see it through. We saw what their missiles did to the Israeli entity. Their hypersonic missiles were unstoppable. And that means that the Israeli entity will also be in deep trouble if the Yemenis start targeting the Israelis over that and the American interests in the GCC.
And they already proved the United States that who will win this war. The Americans are already traumatized. Last time, what happened? Like a couple of weeks, and United States decided to leave. So this is the power of the axis of resistance that hasn't even been activated in the operation against the Zion. Very important because it was really intimidating for the enemy to see their navies are being occupied by the soldiers of Ansarullah without zero fear. They were going to the navies, start dancing on the flag of Zionist regime and United States. So what I'm trying to say here is that not only Ansarullah is going to be way more vicious in targeting, but also the enemy already has a very bad experience trying to fight with Ansarullah.
Leila Hatoum, the 62nd wave of the IRGC that has been executed is using a verb that usually it has not used, and that is the fact that it has said that in the past few hours, which is the Operation True Promise, the fourth have been executed, that it has, and the verb that it's used is plow, that it's plowed all of the U.S. military bases in the region. So plowing all of the U.S. military bases in the region is quite significant. And I'm taking a look at the ones in Akka, Haifa, Tel Aviv, Bas al-Sab, and also looking at Victoria, Al-Kharj, Al-Ghadid, Al-Ghadiri, Al-Tafra, Al-Zar, the Fifth Fleet, Arif Jan, and the types of missiles that were used is the Khaybar and the Qadr, and this is going to obviously lead to anger of the U.S. and Israeli regime, to say the least. Well, they went on there to give some, I guess, analysis there. What do you think about the fact that we're looking at a major escalation there in the type of power that is now being used by Iran in order for the IRGC to use the word plowing their bases across the region, all of them?
Well, that means that the Iranians still have in store missiles that they haven't used, that the Americans haven't seen its power yet. And to plow, it means basically create what you call large ditches in the ground. That means they're going to destroy the bases, and not only the bases, but also the military itself, the personnel and the ships, the whole military infrastructure for the Americans in the region. I do hope that they are successful in doing so, because that means that this region will finally get to know peace if there is no American, what you call, military presence at any point. But also you have to understand one thing. The Iranians showed us Khaybar, but they didn't show us which Khaybar. Is it the newest one or the first version? And there are also basically what you call the stratospheric missiles that they haven't used at any point. They have missiles that fly at faster than 12 Mach speed, that even the THAAD air defense system that the Americans brought over to this region is not able to, or won't be able to stop it, because they only can stop anything up to 8 Mach speed. At the same time, when you look at the situation as is, I do believe that the Americans know that they are, again, as I said, they know that they are in deep trouble. They are stuck in a swamp. They put themselves into that situation. They don't want to back off because of false pride. And everybody knows that Donald Trump is somebody who is filled with false pride, and he is a bully, but he is also a coward. I think he was trying to also meet with the Chinese. Perhaps the Chinese or the Russians can pressure Iran into backing off. And I do believe that they didn't give him time to meet with President Xi Jinping. That's why Donald Trump came out over the past 48 hours saying that he wants to stay in Washington because he has to run this war. He doesn't know how to run wars. He actually started a war based on a feeling. So, or basically maybe the dictations of Benjamin Netanyahu. When it comes to what your esteemed guest has been saying or said right before you asked me the question, you have to understand also when it comes to Yemeni armed forces, they are the only force in the Middle East that forced the Americans to sign a cessation of hostilities agreement with them so that they would allow some of the ships to pass through the Red Sea, which is very important. We're not talking about a state with multiple, like massive military capabilities. No. The Yemenis are, and especially the northern Yemen, is one of the poorest regions on earth. And those people managed with their brains to do what? To alter Soviet-era missiles into becoming hypersonic missiles. And they actually created what you call maritime drones, the swarms that fly underwater, the torpedoes. And they also basically used drones that are worth maximum $2,000 to $5,000 that were bringing down $30 million worth of drones. The MQ drone at any point that the Americans were sending, it's worth up to $30 million. So that dented the American military, what you call budget, because they were banking on selling those drones while testing them in war, but they failed to be a flop. They actually proved to be a flop. They failed miserably, so they lost all these contracts. And now what are the Americans trying to do? They're trying to sell new form of drones called Lucas. They're trying to, or Locust, or whatever it is.
Lucas,
they're trying to convince GCC, they're trying to convince GCC states to buy that. So they want GCC money to invest into these war toys that are also going to flop at the same time. So directly or indirectly, they're trying to push everybody into this war. I know that the Americans are shaking when it comes to the Yemenis entering this war full force. I do believe that the Yemenis are also ready and they're waiting for the signal. I do believe that there's what you call coordination between all the axes of resistance. We saw it happen in Lebanon over the past week when the Iranians and the resistance in Lebanon were hammering the Israelis at the same time from two different sides. And we saw it also happen between the Iranians and the Iraqi resistance when they were both targeting the American presence in Iraq and in Syria.
Well, there's so many surprises that the U.S. has experienced with just a few minutes' time that we have left here. One of those surprises that was very much so underestimated by the U.S. President Donald Trump is said to be the closure of the Strait of Hormuz that Iran has participated in doing and has changed the equation there. Even though the U.S. is threatening the Islamic Republic, its navy, that he claims that it has destroyed or decimated, you have Iran that is making deals with countries to have their tankers flow through the Strait of Hormuz. I think that's a pretty significant fact, isn't it?
Of course. I think you're talking about India,
right.
Turkey, and I think might be Pakistan would be also one of the countries. Yes, the Strait of Hormuz was totally free. We were sanctioned for many years, and we never thought that we are going to get...
By the way, you're right about that. Pakistan, Turkey, and China, and India.
Yeah. Well, we are already exporting our oil to China, so no problem, and
right.
no one can stop us. I think if we didn't have any sort of offensive or defensive system, why Americans haven't, they have just allowed Iranians to just pass and go to China? Why they haven't attacked any ships from Iran to make sure that, okay, if they, our allies cannot export their oil, well, at least what we can do is to stop Iranians from exporting their national resources. They cannot do that. So the Strait of Hormuz is the strait of intimidation for the U.S. empire. Is the strait and is the gate of reshaping the global order. Is the gate that the future of the world order, the multipolar world order, is going to pass by. Is the gate that unipolar world order is ultimately going to say goodbye and forced to accept the very reality of this world, that has zero tolerance for unipolarity, for US empire, to the one that impose whatever desire they have, the feelings that they have. He said, Donald Trump said, I might attack Hawk Island only for fun, and there is no consequences for him. I mean, as long as we're talking about international community. There are many consequences for his acts when it comes to Iran, when it comes to acts of resistance, when it comes to Hezbollah, Ansarullah, Iran, and Iraqi resistance together to make sure, no, you're not going to act with full impunity and see no consequences and leave. You're not going to assassinate the leader of Iran, who is not only a leader, who was the one that was followed by millions of people outside of this country. There will be consequences, and the Strait of Hormuz is one of them. So it's just manifesting, I would say, the Strait of Hormuz, and how you were explaining Iran is allowing this one, the sovereignty of this country. The sovereignty of this country. I decide Strait of Hormuz is mine, and I decide you are my friend because you are not one of those that providing their resources and their everything, actually their sovereignty basically, to the enemy to attack me. You can pass. We can have a deal that is mutual benefit. This is the foundation of multipolar world order. That countries, that neighbors, that regional powers come together and decide about a shared, a common ground that both or maybe many countries together can benefit from.
All right, Lala Hatoun, in terms of my final question to you, are we looking at any possibility of a breakthrough that leads to the one side or the other, in particular the U.S. and Israeli regime side, to say that, okay, we have gotten what we wanted out of this war? All indications seem to be the fact that you have a takeover threat by the U.S. president, both of Hawk Island and also of the Strait of Hormuz. Are we looking at just those two options that they have? And do you think that they will go through with it? And do you think, if they do, that that is going to be their claim to victory? And even if that's a possibility for them to actually be successful in their action?
Well, you have to understand this is an existential problem for the Israelis and for the Americans at the same time. If the Americans lose this war, that means their existence as a military power in this region is no more, and nobody will take them seriously going forward across the world. When it comes to the Israelis losing this war, it means that their existence is also threatened. So they are going to fight what you call in a very vicious manner, where they target, we're going to call it the blows below the belt. Their perverted mindset is how much damage they can actually inflict upon civilians, rather than fighting military achieved victory. Be it in Vietnam, where they lost the war, they couldn't stop the communists. We were discussing it the other day. They couldn't stop the North Koreans and the Viet Congs from taking over Saigon at any point. They also basically failed in so many wars, especially in Lebanon. They always claim that they have won it, but in reality they win some battles, but they lose the war eventually, because always targeting civilians and failing in the face of what you call armies or guerrilla warfare carried out by the resistance, that has a significance in the eyes of their population. If they go back to their population, losing everything, I'm sorry about that, if they lose everything over here, their own population will drag them to courts. Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't want the war to stop until he achieves something that he can tell his people, I achieved this for you, this is why we went into war. He hasn't achieved anything yet. Same thing with the Americans. So I do believe that going forward, the Americans and the Israelis are going to what you call launch massive attacks against civilians, against infrastructure, because that's the only thing that they know how to do. And they are going to claim that they are victorious based on those hits. We just heard Israel Katz, the Minister of War and the Israeli entity, threatening with what you call massive blows against the resistance and against the Iranians. So I do believe that they're going to carry on, because they fear their own public would drag them to court for dragging them into this war without any results at any point.
That's an important point that she's making there, Nahid, is the fact that they are not going to go through any formal recognition and then admission, and then approval of Iranian officials and leadership. That they, I don't know who exactly will be then making that decision, but they don't need to get a green light from, I guess, any higher-ups, from whoever it is that's going to be making that decision. But it doesn't seem like they are learning their lesson, as the Iranians are showing today, that no matter how many leadership officials of rank or not that they target, there's always one to replace it. I believe it was Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi who said that we have vetted and have approved between 3 to 7 replacements for any leadership that gets assassinated by the Israeli regime.
Donald Trump a couple of days ago made a comment about Iranians, saying that they have bad genetics. And I think what he meant by that was that the extraordinary ability of Iranians to be able to say no and to be able to refuse the unipolar world order. This is the bad genetics he was referring to. I think that's very essential, because Donald Trump was the one who promised Iranian people to send help. And now he's not talking about Islamic Republic. He's not talking about soldiers or high officials. He is talking about Iranians having bad genetics. So these people, maybe they do have bad genetics in a way that even under bombardment, they are ready to come to the streets. They are ready to be martyred for international Quds and don't even move an inch. Maybe that's the bad genetics right now. If the right is Epstein regime, maybe we have to be actually grateful for getting this title and for being recognized as having bad genetics. Donald Trump is really bad genetics. Donald Trump is really agitated by the response that Iranian people have, expecting such results from the assassination of our leader. He was misled by his own advisors, by the complete, I would say, arrogance and ignorance of Americans to actually understand what Iran is. I don't understand. For many years, they had billions of dollars to learn about Iran. They have founded many organizations, all the regime changers, all the ones that they wanted to make sure that they are part of the project of regime change, funded heavily by the United States to understand what Iran is. Many think tanks or a study organization that wanted to focus on Iran, to understand Iran, so that whenever they start and initiate an operation against this country, they are fully aware of the consequences. And now you can see zero understanding. It's not even misunderstanding or lack of knowledge. They did not know the very simple notion of nation of Imam Hussein that Haj Qasem Soleimani articulated many times. You don't have to have Iran studies or going so deep into the society of Iran to understand this. That was on the very surface of many political speeches, that if you martyr one, many other people are going to be even more revolutionary and way more prepared to be martyred. So that's one of the many reasons that they did not understand, they did not grasp the reality of this country, and that's the result. You are panicking right now, and that's why now you're coming and you defining Iranians having bad genetics. Sure, we take it.
I got time for one last question before we make our switch over, and that is a reaction I'd like to get from you, if I may, from a senior UAE official, and he is a senior UAE official, Anwar Gargash, who has said that Iran attacks on the Persian Gulf countries are pushing them closer to Israel and to the U.S. Well, a full throttle attack on the Persian Gulf countries will strengthen the Israeli role saying that we're not seeing 2,000 Israeli missiles, but we're seeing 2,000 Iranian missiles and drones targeting us. I'm very surprised that this intel minister or top advisor is making these types of statements, because if we were to take his post and name out of that, it might as well be an Israeli official who's saying that. Exactly. So they're completely on one page with the Israeli regime, and that's quite telling in terms of what different types of alignments and relationships they have that is so deep-rooted for him to come out and make a statement like that.
I am thankful, to be honest. It's the time for them to actually unconceal the very reality about their nature, especially UAE. Years of normalization, years of serving, I would say, the Zionist entity against Iran with the hope that this will lead them a better, bright future. I'm really thankful that UAE now is forced to come and say, okay, we are actually getting closer to a Zionist regime. How closer you can get? You are the arms of the Zionist regime in Persian Gulf, and everyone knows that. And why Iran is attacking the US bases in UAE, that's unfortunate for you, because you are the one who invited the enemy of the sovereignty of, I would say, the West Asia to your soil, and that's the outcome. You didn't think through your decision. You thought you are bringing security for your people. I mean, we're talking about millions of white people just going there. But I just want to finish this. But what you did with the investment of Americans was buying tension and war into your soil.
Okay, thank you so much for that. We do appreciate it. Press TV's Naipur is here in the studios. Thank you for your contribution. Also like to thank Leila Hatoum, Editor-in-Chief at MENA Uncensored, who spoke to us from Beirut. Thank you to you both. At this time, we are ending this rolling coverage, but we will be back with a lot more here on Press TV. Do stay with us.
Thank you.
Hello and welcome, dear viewers. We come to you in this live coverage from Lebanon. I'm joined here by Dr. Mohsen Saleh. Hello and welcome, Dr. Mohsen. You're the president of the International Association of Political Experts. Thank you for joining us in this live coverage. Of course, we do begin with the Israeli assassination of Dr. Ali Larijani, Iran's former top security official. What's the significance of this assassination, and what is the message that the Israelis and the Americans in this joint military operation against Iran is trying to give to the world through such an assassination?
Greetings to you and to the audiences of the Press TV, and deep condolences and very warm condolences to the of course to the leadership in Iran, to the Iranians, to the people who are having the streets, their station, their homes, and of course to the officials, to the Revolutionary Guard, to the army, to the Passage, to all the political and military body in
West Asia to your soil. And that's the outcome. You didn't think through your decision. You thought you are bringing security for your people. I mean, we're talking about millions of white people just going there. But I just want to finish this. But what you did with the investment of Americans was buying tension and war into your soil.
Okay, thank you so much for that. We do appreciate it. Press TV's Naipur is here in the studios. Thank you for your contribution. Also like to thank Leila Hatoum, Editor-in-Chief at MENA Uncensored, who spoke to us from Beirut. Thank you to you both. At this time, we are ending this rolling coverage, but we will be back with a lot more here on Press TV. Do stay with us.
Thank you.
Hello and welcome, dear viewers. We come to you in this live coverage from Lebanon. I'm joined here by Dr. Mohsen Saleh. Hello and welcome, Dr. Mohsen. You're the president of the International Association of Political Experts. Thank you for joining us in this live coverage. Of course, we do begin with the Israeli assassination of Dr. Ali Larijani, Iran's former top security official. What's the significance of this assassination, and what is the message that the Israelis and the Americans in this joint military operation against Iran is trying to give to the world through such an assassination?
Greetings to you and to the audiences of the Press TV, and deep condolences and very warm condolences to the
against the resistance and against the Iranians. So I do believe that they're going to carry on because they fear their own public would drag them to court for dragging them into this war without any results at any point.
That's an important point that she's making there, Nahid, is the fact that they are not going to go through any formal recognition and then approval of Iranian officials and leadership. That they, I don't know who exactly will be then making that decision, but they don't need to get a green light from, I guess, any higher-ups, from whoever it is that's going to be making that decision. But it doesn't seem like they are learning their lesson, as the Iranians are showing today, that no matter how many leadership officials of rank or not that they target, there's always one to replace it. I believe it was Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi who said that we have vetted and have approved between 3 to 7 replacements for any leadership that gets assassinated by the Israeli regime.
Donald Trump a couple of days ago made a comment about Iranians, saying that they have bad genetics. And I think what he meant by that was that the extraordinary ability of Iranians to be able to say no and to be able to refuse the unipolar world order. This is the bad genetics he was referring to. I think that's very essential because Donald Trump was the one who promised Iranian people to send help. And now he's not talking about Islamic Republic. He's not talking about soldiers or high officials. He is talking about Iranians having bad genetics. So these people, maybe they do have bad genetics in a way that even under bombardment, they are ready to come to the streets. They are ready to be martyred for international Quds Day and don't even move an inch. Maybe that's the bad genetics right now. If the right is Epstein regime, maybe we have to be actually grateful for getting this title and for being recognized as having bad genetics. Donald Trump is really bad genetics. Donald Trump is really agitated by the response that Iranian people have expecting such result from the assassination of our leader. He was misled by his own advisors, by the complete, I would say, arrogance and ignorance of Americans to actually understand what Iran is. I don't understand. For many years, they had billions of dollars to learn about Iran. They have founded many organizations, all the regime changers, all the ones that they wanted to make sure that they are part of the project of regime change, funded heavily by the United States to understand what Iran is. Many think tanks or study organizations that wanted to focus on Iran, to understand Iran, so that whenever they start and initiate an operation against this country, they are fully aware of the consequences. And now you can see zero understanding. It's not even misunderstanding or lack of knowledge. They did not know the very simple notion of nation of Imam Hussein that Haj Qasem Soleimani articulated many times. You don't have to have Iran studies or going so deep into the society of Iran to understand this. That was on the very surface of many political speeches, that if you martyr one, many other people are going to be even more revolutionary and way more prepared to be martyred. So that's one of the many reasons that they did not understand, they did not grasp the reality of this country, and that's the result. You are panicking right now, and that's why now you're coming and you defining Iranians having bad genetics. Sure, we take it.
I got time for one last question before we make our switch over, and that is a reaction I'd like to get from you, if I may, from a senior UAE official, and he is a senior UAE official, Anwar Gargash, who has said that Iran attacks on the Persian Gulf countries are pushing them closer to Israel and to the U.S. Well, a full throttle attack on the Persian Gulf countries will strengthen the Israeli role, saying that we're not seeing 2,000 Israeli missiles, but we're seeing 2,000 Iranian missiles and drones targeting us. I'm very surprised that this intel minister or top advisor is making these types of statements, because if he were to take his post and name out of that, it might as well be an Israeli official who's saying that. Exactly. So they're completely on one page with the Israeli regime. And that's quite telling in terms of what different types of alignments and relationships they have that is so deep-rooted for him to come out and make a statement like that.
I am thankful, to be honest. It's the time for them to actually unconceal the very reality about their nature, especially UAE. Years of normalization, years of serving, I would say, the Zionist entity against Iran with the hope that this will lead them a better, bright future. I'm really thankful that UAE now is forced to come and say, okay, we are actually getting closer to a Zionist regime. How closer you can get? You are the arms of the Zionist regime in Persian Gulf, and everyone knows that. And why Iran is attacking the US bases in UAE, that's unfortunate for you, because you are the one who invited the enemy of the sovereignty of, I would say, the West Asia to your soil, and that's the outcome. You didn't think through your decision. You thought you are bringing security for your people. I mean, we're talking about millions of white people just going there. But I just want to finish this. But what you did with the investment of Americans was buying tension and war into your soil.
Okay, thank you so much for that. We do appreciate it. Press TV's Naipur here in the studios. Thank you for your contribution. Also like to thank Leila Hatoum, Editor-in-Chief at MENA Uncensored, who spoke to us from Beirut. Thank you to you both. At this time, we are ending this rolling coverage, but we will be back with a lot more here on Press TV. Do stay with us.
Thank you.
Hello and welcome, dear viewers.
But
Doctor, what did they think?
Of nation of Imam Hussein that Haj Qasem Soleimani articulated many times. You don't have to have Iran studies or going so deep into the society of Iran to understand this. That was on the very surface of many political speeches, that if you martyr one, many other people are going to be even more revolutionary and way more prepared to be martyred. So that's one of the many reasons that they did not understand, they did not grasp the reality of this country, and that's the result. You are panicking right now, and that's why now you're coming and you defining Iranians having bad genetics. Sure, we take it.
I got time for one last question before we make our switch over, and that is a reaction I'd like to get from you, if I may, from a senior UAE official, and he is a senior UAE official, Anwar Gargash, who has said that Iran attacks on the Persian Gulf countries are pushing them closer to Israel and to the U.S. Well, a full throttle attack on the Persian Gulf countries will strengthen the Israeli role, saying that we're not seeing 2,000 Israeli missiles, but we're seeing 2,000 Iranian missiles and drones targeting us. I'm very surprised that this intel minister or top advisor is making these types of statements, because if he were to take his post and name out of that, it might as well be an Israeli official who's saying that. Exactly. So they're completely on one page with the Israeli regime. And that's quite telling in terms of what different types of alignments and relationships they have that is so deep-rooted for him to come out and make a statement like that.
I am thankful, to be honest. It's the time for them to actually unconceal the very reality about their nature, especially UAE. Years of normalization, years of serving, I would say, the Zionist entity against Iran with the hope that this will lead them a better, bright future. I'm really thankful that UAE now is forced to come and say, okay, we are actually getting closer to a Zionist regime. How closer you can get? You are the arms of the Zionist regime in Persian Gulf, and everyone knows that. And why Iran is attacking the US bases in UAE, that's unfortunate for you, because you are the one who invited the enemy of the sovereignty of, I would say, the West Asia to your soil, and that's the outcome. You didn't think through your decision. You thought you are bringing security for your people. I mean, we're talking about millions of white people just going there. But I just want to finish this. But what you did with the investment of Americans was buying tension and war into your soil.
Okay, thank you so much for that. We do appreciate it. Press TV's Naipur here in the studios. Thank you for your contribution. Also like to thank Leila Hatoum, Editor-in-Chief at MENA Uncensored, who spoke to us from Beirut. Thank you to you both. At this time, we are ending this rolling coverage, but we will be back with a lot more here on Press TV. Do stay with us.
Thank you.
Hello and welcome, dear viewers. We come to you in this live coverage from Lebanon. I'm joined here by Dr. Mohsen Saleh. Hello and welcome, Dr. Mohsen. You're the president of the International Association of Political Experts. Thank you for joining us in this live coverage. Of course, we do begin with the Israeli assassination of Dr. Ali Larijani, Iran's former top security official. What's the significance of this assassination, and what is the message that the Israelis and the Americans in this joint military operation against Iran is trying to give to the world through such an assassination?
Greetings to you and to the audiences of the Press TV, and deep condolences and very warm condolences to the, of course, to the leadership in Iran, to the Iranians, to the people who are having the streets, their station, their homes, and of course to the officials, to the Revolutionary Guard, to the army, to the Passage, to all the political and military bodies and institutions in Iran. The Iranians, of course, they deserve this wise man, but the world, it seems, doesn't understand the wisdom. Ali Larijani, the Secretary General of the Security Council, Supreme Security Council in Iran, was one of the brilliant minds in Iran. and he knows the word, the language, the political language, and he knows also how to deal physically and psychologically with the world.
Yes.
He knows the psychology of the enemy. That's why he was always calm and prudent. His words, this have this connotation of subtlety and beauty. Larijani, unusual man in Iran.
Yes.
He is one of the pillars, one of the foundations of the regime and the revolution. In terms of statesman, he was a great man during his presidency of the Shura Council, and then as a counselor and consultant and as a man in this Supreme Council, he was also very influential, and his ideas was so deep and strategic. So that's why the Israelis and the Americans are afraid from the word, because the word kills them more than the bullet. And or the missile.
Okay, and you're speaking about this character, this very heavy character that has a different positive values when it comes to leadership. Does that mean that the Israelis wanted to like break the morale of the Iranians by assassinating him, because he is very much loved by the Iranians and also by the resistance, by the axis of the resistance?
They wanted this enemy, these barbarians, these who are breaking the rules of peace and legitimacy and sovereignty and wisdom. They want to kill the meaning of a statecraftsman. They want to kill not only the morale, but to be erudite and to be conscious and aware of the world and speak to it as you know all its realities.
Yes.
As if it's in front of you on your table, in your book. When you read it in this manner then and comprehend all the meanings of the international relationships, they hate that, because they are barbarians. They know how to kill. They don't know how to understand.
Okay.
They don't know how to have this kind of acculturation.
Okay.
Or let's to say dialogue of the civilizations. They know how to make massacres, how to commit crimes, how to steal, how to kill, how to corrupt. They know all these bad things. But Larijani knew wisdom and prudency and
yes.
all the good things and the humanity.
The Islamic Revolution, actually, the Islamic Revolution Guards Corps has avenged, in the process of avenging Dr. Ali Larijani's assassination. Yesterday, 100 very heavy strikes by the Iranians on Israeli sensitive sites. Of course, due to Israeli media blackout, we haven't known the number of people or the Israelis killed and the amount of destruction that these sophisticated missiles that struck occupied Palestine